Hello my strong friends. In today's video, as the title states, I'm going to describe who should not try supplements. And maybe I'll give you some insight on whether or not you should consider buying them. If you saw last week's video, then you saw that I am starting my very own supplement company. So why the hell would I make this video? Well, good question. It's Buff Chick Supplements, by the way. Hello. If you didn't see the last video of the announcement, I'd love if you checked it out. Products will be available November 23rd, and I'll give you more information, but I do really want to focus on just the topic of this video. But just for insight, transparency is one of my company's core values, and one of my values just in what I do here, and especially important for anyone who's talking about fitness and health and wellness. I know I always appreciate it when companies are very upfront and forthcoming about who their products may be helpful for and who should not use their products, just to help save consumers a little bit of money and help educate them along the way. So hopefully this video will give you some insight on whether or not you should try supplements or at least consider trying them, or if there are better things that deserve your time and energy. So hopefully I can clear that up, not just on things that I'm offering, but on general supplements, things you might have in your cabinet now or things you might consider buying in the future. I'll also cover a few more common supplements that are used by people who are interested in muscle building and strength gain, which is usually what we talk about on this channel here. And I'm also going to answer some of the questions that you all asked on Instagram. I got a lot of the same ones, so I want to cover them all in this video. Okay, so we have a lot to cover. I have notes here as usual, so I'll try to look at the camera the entire time, but yeah, just keep in mind I'll have notes here, especially because I don't want to anything up. All right, let's talk about who should not try supplements. Obviously in this video, I'm going to be kind of speaking generally and giving general nutrition and supplementation advice. So if you're someone who is pregnant or nursing, if you're someone who has a medical condition, if you're under the age of 18, then you'll want to consult with your own healthcare team and have them look at the ingredients that are in any supplements you might be interested in trying. I won't be giving those specific people any advice in this video, so I'd recommend talking to your healthcare team. This will be general supplementation advice for healthy adults who aren't pregnant or nursing. Okay, so first I want to share a graphic that was created by Eric Helms. If you're not already following him on Instagram or other places on the internet, you should definitely check him out. I'll link his stuff down below. But he put together a muscle and strength building pyramid on the nutrition side, and I find that this is really helpful because it kind of outlines things that are more important than supplementation. So on the baseline, you have energy balance, then the subsequent levels as you go up the pyramid get smaller and less important. So after energy balance, you have macronutrients, then micronutrients, then nutrient timing, and then at the very top, supplementation. So what this just says is that unless some bigger, more important things are addressed when it comes to your nutrition, then supplementation isn't going to be the differentiating factor or the limiting factor that's holding you back from your goals. If I had to make one that combined both nutrition and training, I would put nutrition and training, a good solid program at the bottom or the bottom two levels. Then I put on top of that, a little bit less important, sleep recovery and stress management. And then again, at the very top, the least important thing is supplementation. Now, to be clear here, I don't think that you need to have all of these lower levels, 100% compliance or 100% adherence by any means. But if you're someone who isn't on a strength program, if you're someone who has very little control over your nutrition habits, if you're someone who's not able to get in enough protein or getting minimum protein, then I'd really recommend you work on your habits and lifestyle factors so that you can start to lay a better foundation. So it's not that supplements will be ineffective if you're not 100% adherent or 100% perfect on all these other levels. It's very rare for people to be able to get 8 hours of sleep a night, and that I understand, and they may benefit from some supplementation, but if you're really all over the place, you're better off spending your time and money figuring out how to make lifestyle changes so that you can start to lay a better foundation, like I mentioned. Okay, so that kind of covers who just probably shouldn't waste time looking into supplementation or money on a ton of supplements. So consider that when you're figuring out what to buy. Okay, so hopefully that gives you just a general recommendation as far as how you should view supplements and how you should always look at them. Nothing is going to be a magic pill, especially not the things that I'm offering. I'll never market them as a magic pill, and you should definitely be aware of companies who may market their products as something that could be the end all be all to your goal. Now that we have that in check, and not to say that I'm going to weed out some people with that, but if you're someone who's watching this channel, you probably are already on a dedicated strength program. You're probably have some nutrition in check. You probably have protein in check, and you're someone that generally is prioritizing your health and fitness, especially if you're watching a video like this. So you can keep watching, I guess. And in the rest of the video, I'm gonna give you more insight on how to figure out what would work for you. Let's first talk about how to conduct your own research and find trusted brands. It's important to me that I give you some information on how to make some educated choices when shopping for supplements, when being marketed supplements, so that, yeah, you can make empowered choices. So I'm gonna give you a few tips or resources and tools that I've used in the past and that I recommend you using, and things to look out for when you're looking at brands and on their websites and so on. So the first thing is examine.com. Now, examine.com is an awesome resource for anyone who's interested in learning more about supplementation, ingredients that are inside your supplements, or general nutrition advice. They analyze the most recent research and make it really, really easy to understand and just really almost bite-sized. If you want to dig into more in depth into the studies, they will cite them there. But there's a couple things I like about this company. One factor is that they're not funded or owned by any food or supplementation company, so you know that you're getting unbiased information, and their website makes like looking up confusing ingredients or things that you've never heard of really, really simple and easy. One thing that I really like that they offer is this human effect matrix, and it basically looks at the evidence, what effects each ingredient has on the body, how much evidence there is, and how strong that effect is. I love examine.com because you can easily look at your supplement facts panel from whatever supplement you're using and cross-check it with Examine to understand the science behind what that ingredient does or has been shown to do in scientific studies. All right, my next tip is to always look at the supplement facts panel. You're probably really used to looking at SFPs in food if you're someone who's counted macros or just interested in learning more about the calories. It's really important that you check the SFPs and the ingredients in whatever supplements you are ingesting, of course. So I highly recommend before you purchase a product to check on the website to see if they even list an SFP, because a huge red flag is when a brand does not list an SFP. And I've seen really big brands that influencers work with and there's no supplement facts panel, which is really disappointing. So I'd suggest if there's no SFP, don't buy the product, because you have no way of knowing from their ingredients that they're claiming are in there. You have no way of knowing how much of that ingredient is, and they're essentially just not giving you the information that you need to understand if that product or if each scoop contains the effective dose of the ingredient that is said to work. Along those lines, within the SFP, you also want to keep in mind and look at things that are known as proprietary blends. So proprietary blends make it really difficult to understand what's truly in your product. So in most cases, the blends are a combination of some effective ingredients and then filler or bulking agents that make up this proprietary blend that they tell you, okay, there's in each scoop, there's 5 grams of this proprietary blend, but you have no way of knowing if they're in that 5 grams, how much of it is the active ingredient. So essentially you end up just getting a cheap product that is not as effective, which sucks. The next thing you may want to consider when you're shopping online for supplements is, does the supplement company cite any research on their website? Now, I realize not every consumer is going to want to click through and read scientific studies. They can be really hard to understand sometimes, but when supplement companies make claims, it's important that they have the evidence to back that claim. And this is just one way to ensure that your supplement company or the brand that you're buying from is doing their due diligence and trying to educate their consumers and sort of leading with science as a means to explain what they're putting in their product and why. And the last thing to consider is whether or not the company conducts third-party testing. So supplements are not regulated by the FDA, which makes it really confusing, and it also makes it kind of scary because it's not a regulated industry. So if you're someone who wants to be especially safe as far as like what you're putting into your body, look for brands that conduct third-party testing. So Buff Chick Supplements has conducted third-party testing for every single one of our products from the very start, which is really exciting. And we want to do this because BSCG, our Banned Substance Control Group, that's our third-party testing, they ensure and they provide assurance that dietary supplements are free of banned substances and free of any other drug contaminants that may cause health issues or may cause positive drug tests, which since we're working with athletes and we're marketing to athletes who compete in strength sport, we definitely don't want them to get popped just by taking a pre-workout or a creatine that may have just had contamination in it. So BSCG assures that that's not happening. So every time a new batch is formulated from our lab, BSCG gets sent a few bottles so that they can conduct their third-party testing to ensure that every batch is free of any contaminated substances or banned substances. Contaminants or banned substances. So many syllables in what we're talking about in this video. So aside from third-party testing, you may want to also check whether or not the company is advertising any certifications that their laboratory has. Things that you might want to look out for are CGMP certified and an FDA registered facility. And it's important to keep in mind that these are things that are exciting for a company to market and exciting for a company to talk about. So if you're having a hard time understanding what certifications the laboratory has that the products are coming from, then that's kind of a red flag that tells you that they may not be certified. I just recommend following kind of those guidelines and tools and things to look out for before you start buying from a particular brand or buying a particular product. All right, so let's talk about specific supplements and products that you may have already heard of or things you might be interested in trying. So personally, at the launch of Buff Chick Supplements, we have decided to start the company and launch with a few items of things that I personally use, things that I feel most comfortable with, and the things that are more so for the average strength athlete or in line with goals of muscle building and strength. So I won't get into the specifics of every single ingredient and what it does, but I encourage you, of course, to check out our supplement facts panel that of course is online on our website and cross-examine some of the ingredients with examine.com. I'll put them on screen, of course, so that you can see and maybe get used to doing some research. The products that we're launching with are very common products for strength athletes, like I mentioned. They are a pre-workout, a non-stim pre-workout, and a creatine monohydrate. So of course, if you'd like to purchase my supplements or want to support my company, then please do that. We launch on the 23rd, but I don't want this entire video to be about my products, and those are things that many other brands offer. So we're just going to discuss them generally. I won't cover every product under the sun, but I'm going to give you some basic recommendations or common things that you might want to start with or have already seen before. First, let's talk about creatine. I don't want to mess any of this up because of course I don't. So I may look at my screen just so that I don't miss anything. So creatine is something that's naturally found in your body, and unfortunately you don't get enough creatine to experience the possible muscle building benefit in our regular diet. So creatine supplementation just gives you creatine in a higher dose. It is one of the most researched supplements. It has hundreds of studies that support evidence that creatine may modestly increase lean muscle mass, especially in conjunction with a strength program. Unfortunately, unfortunately, since creatine is muscle building supplements, it sometimes gets grouped into like performance enhancing drugs. So sometimes it gets a bad rap, which is unfortunate because it's an amazing supplement and it's backed by a ton of research. So in my opinion, there's no real reason to cycle on or off or creatine load, but some people are, keep this in mind, some people are non-responders to creatine, but basically it's an affordable supplement that may help you build lean muscle mass, and in my opinion, it's typically worth the investment, especially if you're training regularly. So if you're looking for a extra edge, creatine might be something that will be helpful. All right, next let's talk about pre-workout. The ingredients in most pre-workout powders are said to help things like energy, they can help your focus, a muscle pump, they can help endurance and power output, and all of those things are shown to help and assist in your workouts. Common ingredients found in pre-workouts, and I won't list all of them because there could be an array. You might find things like beta-alanine, L-citrulline, L-tyrosine, theanine, betaine, all of those things and more. So it'd be impossible to read off every possible ingredient that has ever been in a pre-workout, but hopefully that'll give you an idea of things to expect. Maybe some things that you've already heard of. Pre-workouts are, like I said, typically formulated to have a caffeinated one or a non-stim pre-workout. Usually you can take the non-stim pre-workout for afternoon workouts or if you're watching your caffeine intake. But of course, like any product, if you're interested in the market or in the market of buying a pre-workout, make sure to cross-check your supplement facts panel, look for those proprietary blends and ingredients that may not make sense to you, and cross-examine them with examine.com. All right, I covered a couple of products that you may have heard of or may be curious about just as a general overview. I want to now get into some of the questions that I most frequently got. So yeah, let's just get into it. Some of the things that you guys are curious about. Someone asked, what dirty ingredients should I watch for when buying supplements? And can you give a breakdown of ingredients that are fillers or bulking agents that are in the product to cheapen it? All right, this is where you really want to look for those proprietary blends. You want to look for any unclear labels or supplement facts panels that aren't listed on the website. And you also want to take a look at ingredients that are listed and ensure that they have the effective dose. That's something that you want to make sure. A lot of pre-workouts, I'll get into this in a little bit, a lot of pre-workouts will contain creatine, and that may seem attractive to people because it's kind of another ingredient that someone may already be taking, but the problem with that is a lot of them only have like 1 or 2 grams of creatine, where that's under the effective range of dose that people should be taking on a daily basis. And the last thing, of course, is to look out for that third-party stamp of approval. The third-party testing can ensure that there's no contaminants in the product, but also they can ensure that what's stated on the supplement facts panel, what's stated on the label, is actually in the product. Nothing more, nothing less. Okay, this kind of goes into something that I briefly touched on. Someone asked, I noticed most pre-workouts include creatine. Is it overkill to also take creatine post-workout? There are some pre-workouts that do include creatine. Creatine should be taken daily. Sometimes people don't take pre-workout every single day, so that's something to keep in mind. The effective dose has a range, but most people take about 5 grams a day of creatine, so you want to ensure if you're supplementing with pre-workout that has a creatine, you want to ensure that you're getting that minimum effective dose. Plenty of brands will have just like 1 gram of creatine because they want to advertise that the product also has creatine, which is a muscle building supplement or a muscle building ingredient. Also, make sure that if someone's listing creatine as the ingredient, they let you know how much creatine is in it, and it's not part of a proprietary blend. A lot of people ask this question in this way, so I want to touch on it. The question is, what supplements are necessary for me to try? And the answer is none. There are not really any supplements that are necessary unless you're someone who is supplementing under the guidance of a healthcare team, unless you've been prescribed something due to a deficiency. So if you're an average healthy person who's not pregnant or breastfeeding, there aren't supplements that are necessary. So I want to clear that up. For the most part, and for most people, supplements are not something that you need. You don't need to take supplements. Overall, you don't need a pre-workout to train, and you don't need creatine to experience the benefits of training if your diet and training is in check. So they can be things that can help you and push you kind of further within those goals, but they're not necessary. It's really important to me that you know that they're not necessary, okay? So someone asked, what are some good reasons to take a pre-workout? I drink coffee in the morning before I lift and I don't need the caffeine boost. Pre-workouts come in a stimulant or non-stim option. So you do have that option to get something that won't give you more caffeine, especially if you already are getting enough or don't want to add it. But there are other ingredients other than caffeine in most pre-workouts, and definitely in our pre-workout. There's theanine, which is a nootropic that is synergistic with caffeine. So if you are taking caffeine, or just having a cup of coffee, you most likely don't have theanine, as far as I understand. There are other ingredients that may support optimal blood flow, which can lead to a better workout. Some can give you that tingly feeling that some people really like. Some people report psychological benefits to experiencing the tingles. They can help with pumps. And I'd recommend looking into the ingredients and double checking through examine.com to understand what works and why you might want to consider a pre. I also love coffee, so sometimes I'll just do a non-stim if I don't need any extra caffeine, although caffeine is a great supplement to have before a workout, in my opinion. Okay, someone asks, and I love this question, are greens as stupid as they sound if you eat vegetables? I love that question because greens are so popular, and it's important that people understand what they're getting when they buy a greens product. Greens powders, they usually contain extracts and powders of vegetables or of plants that you wouldn't typically consume. So things like wheatgrass juice, spirulina, chlorella, plant powder, alfalfa leaf. Like, you're never gonna eat those things if you're most people. So since you have those ingredients in a greens powder, you can kind of assure that you're getting a little bit more variety or things that you wouldn't typically consume. So that is a benefit to a greens powder, but it's important to keep in mind a few things. There are some companies that sell a greens powder that is solely just the extracts and the powders of vegetables and fruits. And that's fine, but personally, I wouldn't waste my money on that, especially if you're not able to see the micronutrient content and daily values on their supplement facts panel, which is the case for a lot of greens powders. So keep that in mind, because you're getting this much of powders, and yeah, they are extracts, but typically you're not getting the micronutrients with a greens powder. You're getting phytonutrients, which are things like antioxidants, which antioxidants obviously have a lot of great benefits, but I probably wouldn't waste my money on something that just had that. Good greens powders, in my opinion, will have more than just the powder from vegetables. They'll add things like probiotics, they'll add things like digestive enzymes or other adaptogens like ashwagandha, things that will overall help the consumer maybe possibly feel a little bit better, have a little bit, it may support their digestive system. It may help. Some people claim that their products may help your skin. So yeah, I would choose a green supplements that has probiotics, digestive enzymes, and adaptogens. Now, there are some greens powders that contain and list their supplement facts panels, but typically they're far more expensive. So Athletic Greens has a great product that is really highly regarded, and it is all of those things that I mentioned, plus also lists the micronutrients that you get. Now, however, it's a huge scoop, and I hear it has a good taste, but the texture of kind of like dirt. So keep that in mind when you're shopping. It is far more expensive than other greens powders that don't have all the macronutrients within it. You're basically getting like a multivitamin within a greens powders. Greens powders do not replace eating vegetables, so keep eating them, but it does have some benefits. Okay, someone asked, how do you test the effectiveness of your supplements? This is a great question. So the answer to it is that we rely on research, which is hopefully what most supplement companies do. And especially at our very start, we have no interest in adding ingredients or experimenting with ingredients that aren't backed by evidence and aren't supported by the research. So we're focused on relying on studies and citing those studies so that consumers can make more educated choices and know that they're spending their money on something that has been tested and trialed and is supported by science, which is great. So in my opinion, this should be the baseline, but there's so many companies that don't cite research, that don't disclaim or disclose everything on their website, and they do tricky ways or tricky things to get around full disclosure. All right, and this is the last question I have because I know this video is getting so long. Someone asked, and so many people asked about BCAAs. Are BCAAs important? I'm gonna give you a general overview of what the research says, and this is my interpretation of it. So if I'm getting anything wrong and you're a biochemist or a scientist, please do let me know. But basically, from what I understand, for people with low protein intake, BCAAs can promote muscle protein synthesis. However, if you're watching this channel and you're still watching this video, you're probably on a strength program. You're probably someone who's getting enough protein, or at least conscious of the fact that you need to get enough protein. For that population of people, BCAAs probably won't give you much of an edge. So there's that. BCAA is probably unnecessary for that group of people. With that being said, there is some evidence that shows that BCAAs may reduce the effect of DOMS, or delayed onset muscle soreness. It could be enticing for people who want to supplement with BCAAs. They're not cheap. They're not terribly expensive. You can find them cheap, I guess. Anecdotally, I've met people who like BCAAs to help with hydration. There's probably cheaper ways to help with hydration. But yeah, if it's something that helps with hydration and also may help with DOMS, then maybe it's something to consider. And a lot of people say that it helps them psychologically, kind of like taking a pre-workout without the stimulant effect you are getting in your gym habit, you're getting in your routine. It's something that just kind of gets you going. Personally, I don't take them, but I understand why some people might want to take them. And yeah, especially if they don't like the taste or the effect that pre-workout gives them. All right, you guys, thank you so much for watching the entire video. Thank you for still being here. It's important to understand that I am not a biochemist. I am not a sports nutritionist, but I do lean on those kind of people. I have a trusted lab, third-party testing, a team that has sports nutritionists on it, and a network of people who have helped really bring the company forward and help us launch with products that are effective, shown to be effective, and things that we're really proud of. So keep that in mind. You know, I'm not in my garage mixing together ingredients. I feel like we've kind of taken all the necessary steps and all the safety precautions to ensure that our consumers are getting the very best supplements, and the supplements that are backed by science, which is exactly what we want to do and exactly what we want to promote for more supplement brands to take charge on and continue committing to. And yeah, we're just excited to be a part of an industry that we have consumed for so many years, and yeah, we're excited to do something new. Thank you for watching. We're launching our products, the pre-workout, the non-stim pre-workout, and our creatine on November 23rd. So please do check us out. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.